Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday night to another edition of the Degen Docs. Who are we? Two medical professionals united in their fight for degeneracy. And we are, of course, talking all things fantasy football, betting, Underdog. You're going to get it all here. We're breaking down the biggest, the greatest, the latest injury news for fantasy football. So, of course, our fantasy football playoffs are right around the corner. They're either already here for you or they're next week. This week is a huge week to make sure you secure your spot, you elevate your spot, or for my people, my bottom dwellers, you make sure you stay out of that last place. Before we begin, I would like to make an official statement. OG SGPN Football Doc here. As a Florida Gators fan, I would just like to I would like to actually propose a toast to the College Football Committee. I commend them for their absolute sacrifice, honor, and integrity for leaving out the Georgia Bulldogs and Florida State Seminoles. I am just ecstatic, brother. I'm, of course, joined here by my co-host, Professor Locks himself, Mr. Derek Bennett. What are your thoughts on the college football selection?
I think they did the right thing. At the end of the day, I think they got the 4 teams that make the most sense to give them the best 4 games or best 2 games out of the 4 teams. As a Ohio State fan, it pains me to talk about the college football playoffs for the 3rd year in a row, but it is what it is.
Hey, man, always so close there. But yeah, I agree, man. I think honestly, four best teams are in. I understand the gripes of what it is, but sitting wearing this orange and blue, I'm never gonna complain on behalf of Florida State or Georgia. So.
Yeah. With that being said, Florida State had a great season. Commend them for what they did. But at the end of the day, Alabama just took down the top team in the nation, so they deserve to be in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, sucks to suck for your Florida State fans there. All right. I would also like to shout out to the NFL. Shout out to the NFL for giving us their version of the Army-Navy game this week. With we got Pittsburgh and New England tonight, which is probably going to be an ugly game. Now, my take, may not be super hot, but I do think that we will get more points in the Army-Navy game as opposed to the New England and Steelers game tonight. So we'll definitely have to see there. Real quick on the Army-Navy game, I just want to do a quick shout out. So for those who do not know, I am in the Army. I'm a first lieutenant in the Army. So obviously I love watching this game. This is always, it means a lot. One of those things where, you grow up watching it and you really just appreciate it a little bit more on the other side. If you want to talk more Army Navy, we are not a college football podcast, so we will not be talking a ton about that. But I had the pleasure to go on the NASCAR gambling podcast actually, and was joined by Rod. Rod is in the service as well. He's on the Army side. Cody was a veteran. He served on the Navy side. We talked all things Army Navy game over on the gambling podcast. So make sure you guys check that out if you're the NASCAR gambling podcast. Check that out if you're interested. Might have given. I really love. What say you, my friend? Will you be tuning in? Will you be having any action on that game there?
I will definitely be tuning in because it's the only Saturday college football game. But with that being said, I probably will not have much on that game. I may sprinkle a little bit on the seamen or midshipmen or whatever they're called nowadays, because it's their turn to win. The last four games have swapped back and forth, so it's Navy's turn.
Well, I will absolutely not agree with you on that, but what I can agree with you on is how awesome Hall of Fame Bets is. We are going to be obviously right after this breaking down all the latest and greatest fantasy football injury news, and we are going to finish it up with a nice juicy underdog parlay. One of the best ways to help you make that parlay is with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform parlays, prayer pops, and game lines. And to make the deal even more sweet, you can use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off on your first month. So we give you that little full trial, and you're going to fall in love with it and have no problem paying full price there. All right. Let's go ahead and talk some injuries. So we're going to go up and pull up my article over on sportsgamblingpodcast.com, and we're just going to go ahead and start breaking them down piece by piece, letting you know who we like this week, who do we think you should be sitting. So let me go ahead and pull that up here. All right, first up, we're going to go through a couple quick ones to start it off with. We're going to talk about two guys whose fantasy football season is unfortunately done. Just to make sure you're aware, Tank Dell was blocking. He got rolled up on. He actually fractured his fibula, so he's going to be out. He had season-ending surgery for the year. And then we got Mr. Christian Kirk. We all saw him on that Monday night game. He kind of went down. It really didn't look like much. I mean, we were debating about, did he just hit his manhood or what happened there? Yeah, he's going to be a kind of he's going to have core surgery. So he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, definitely out for fantasy football, but he's got a shot to come back for the playoffs for the Jaguars there. Yeah, exactly. So Derek, any thoughts on those guys? I know it's pretty cut and dry there, but you got anything?
Not really. No, as far as a fantasy football perspective, they're done. And like you said, Christian Kirk, if the Jags were to make a deep playoff run, he may be able to come back and give T-Law his basically number one target at this point. Football doc, you froze. Good. Well, I guess Sebastian is frozen, or at least he is on my end. So let's go ahead and continue down the list of guys that we were planning on talking about. We'll see if Sebastian can join us yet again. But the next guy that we were really looking at discussing was Najee Harris. Popped on the scene with a knee injury earlier this week, obviously playing in the next couple of hours in that Thursday night matchup. Najee Harris, I expect he will suit up. It's already been basically announced that he will be on the field tonight. It depends on a lot of different factors, whether he will be getting his full amount of workload or not. He basically has been sharing the workload with Jaylen Warren for the entire season, but Najee with that knee injury should get some of that workload as he normally does. But looking at the matchup against the New England Patriots, I don't think it's a great matchup. I would probably sit him. Hey, there he is. He's back.
Hey.
back and better than ever, as Greeny would say. I was just talking about Najee and how he's been sharing carries with Warren basically the entire season. He's planning on strapping him up tonight. But what do you think as far as Najee goes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, sorry. Connection apparently is not too great over here. But yeah, Najee Harris coming in with that minor knee injury. I don't think you can trust him. We talked about splitting carries there. Additionally, with this injury, you're also going up against a pretty bad matchup. Patriots, although their offense is abysmal, from the defensive side of the ball, they're pretty good. So I like, I don't think you can trust Najee Harris there. I think Jaylen Warren, if you have him, is probably the way to go just because of the receiving aspect. But really, I don't love either of these guys. And if you just are thinking about Najee or not, I'd probably sit him this week there as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would say if I were to pick one of the two, I would lean more Jaylen Warren just because of the sheer fact that he's more explosive. He's a big play guy rather than Najee's kind of there, 2 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah,
kind of
I appreciate
well with the Pats.
I appreciate Jamie in the chat here, as always. My guy, shout out to my guy Jamie in the chat. Yeah, I apologize for the connection issues, but you're right. Hopefully the face wasn't too goofy over there. All right, we are going to go ahead and
to give you. I tried to freeze with you for a minute, but
in solidarity, I appreciate you. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to keep kicking it off there. So Najee looks like a sit for both of us. Next up, Justin Jefferson. This is obviously a huge one, right? I mean, he's been out for, it's going to be 9 weeks coming up this week where he's going to be out. So you've had him on your fantasy team and you've somehow made it to the playoffs. First off, cheers to you. That's pretty impressive. But I think you finally get some good news here. Where he's got 2 full practices now in a row. Are you trusting Justin Jefferson or do you still have your reservations? How are you playing this, Derek?
I'm starting Jetta whenever I can. Obviously he hasn't been on the field going on 6, 8, 9 weeks at this point. It's been a while.
9 weeks. Yeah, 9 weeks.
It's been a while. But with that being said, they've been extremely cautious with him. Obviously, they've basically arrested him the last 2 weeks because they had a bye last week. So I expect Jetta to be at full force. Obviously, probably took a little bit of a step back from Kirk Cousins to Dobbs, but it's hard not to start Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of those situations where, that KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. Justin Jefferson is on the field. I am starting him. And I'm actually pretty hopeful. I think he's going to come back and have a pretty nice game. You mentioned the team was cautious. He was cautious. So at this point, I think he's 100%, and we're going to see the Justin Jefferson we're used to, as opposed to some guys who come back a little too early, and that re-injury risk really scares me away. All right, next up, another guy I think we're both feeling pretty good about. We got that's Philadelphia Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert. They obviously have a huge matchup this week that got even bigger when they took that L from San Francisco. Let me just say, as a Giants fan, that loss was just poetic to watch. Shout out Big Dom for really motivating the Niners there. But we got Dallas Goedert, and so he came back. He's dealing with a forearm fracture. We talked about him last week as well. It's one of those situations where, if bones need time, that's what they need to heal. If they have the appropriate time, the imaging shows they're good, usually pretty good. Do you think there's going to be some rust here? How scared are you? Obviously, we're getting close to playoff time. Every decision matters a little bit more. Are you trusting Goddard here in a matchup against the Cowboys, or are you looking elsewhere there?
No, I think Dallas Goedert's probably at least the top 10 tight end going into this week. Just knowing how big he is to the Eagles offense really opens up the middle of the field for their offense. Like you said, with fractures, is the bone healed or not? And it sounds like it is. He's been practicing this week, so I'm all for starting Goddard.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you, man. Yeah, I think you can tell this Eagles team looks different as far as, whether he's on the field or not. I think these past couple of weeks, they've really missed him. I think, like you said, that source over the middle. I mean, yeah, Hurts hopefully finds him early and often for their benefit, right? To allow, soften up the outside so you don't have to just keep going to.
Especially against a hungry, needy, basically must-win Dallas defense.
Yeah, no, this is a huge game. I agree. I think both teams here have trouble guarding the tight end there. So I like that as well. So we got our question here from Mr. Jamie. Goddard or Warren in the flex? This is a good question, actually. I like this one. I will let you field it first, my friend.
I think I would probably go Goddard. Just knowing that it's such a big game for the Eagles. Warren does not have a great matchup against the Pats at all. So I would probably go Goddard, especially knowing that Warren's going to split carries with Najee. And Najee's probably taken the majority of the carries. I guess I don't know the exact stats, but he's gotten the ball a lot more over the last couple of weeks since they've changed coordinators.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, we were definitely early in the season trending toward Jaylen Warren potentially taking over that RB1 spot. But you're right. Ever since they changed away from shitty Matt Canada there, they've definitely gone back to Najee Harris. And we don't really know much about that knee injury. So that could work for the good and the bad in a situation where, he may be somewhat limited, but maybe it's something like a very minor bone bruise where, guys can work through that, or just, maybe a contusion or something like that. So it's really tough when we don't know. You expect him to be limited with him missing practice, but with the optimism that he's going to play and be active, I think it's one of those situations where I would maybe go Goddard there too, and the matchup, right? This could legitimately be a like 6-3 game where it's just punt city, and there's not a lot of opportunities and no touchdowns scored. For game script and for splitting carries, I think we got to go Goddard there.
Yeah, it's
All
just
right, let's go ahead
a huge matchup with the Eagles and Dallas.
Oh yeah. All right, let's move along here. We got a couple more to talk about. Obviously, you got questions, drop them in there. We'll get to them. All right, Aaron Jones. So Green Bay running back Aaron Jones. I know as an Aaron Jones owner, man, he's had a up. Let me just not even up. He's had a down season. He's been borderline bust potential. He's had the hamstring he's dealt with. He looked great week 1. And then, of course, on his way to the end zone, he pulled up on that hamstring. Then he comes back and he hurts his knee. Now, MCL sprain, actually, if you're going to injure a ligament to your knee, your MCL is probably the one you want. It's got the best healing potential due to blood flow and vascularity there. But what say you, Derek? It looks like did not practice yesterday, practice in a limited fashion today. They have that game on Monday night against the Giants. Where are you feeling about Aaron Jones?
Yeah, especially with the Packers coming on as strongly as they have over the last couple of weeks. And December is kind of the Packers month, really, over the last season or two. But I think Aaron Jones returns to a full workload or close to a full workload this week, especially with the extra couple days with him playing on Monday. A.J. Dillon, as a fantasy owner of him.
Drink up, brother.
Yeah. Not great as far as a fantasy perspective goes. Probably a true game player, but I think Aaron Jones has a big game this coming week.
I will say, I don't know if I have as much faith in Aaron Jones. Let me see the practice report tomorrow. If he can put on a full practice tomorrow, I'll boost my confidence. Really, AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. I don't know who I'm really want to target there. Dexter Lawrence for the Giants should be back this week. He's obviously a big piece in the middle there for that defense. So we will see there. Derek's got a little more confidence in Jones than I do. All right, very relatable question here. We got Bryce. Welcome, Bryce. Cheers, brother. Got 4 questionables. Aaron Jones, Dalton Schultz, Kenneth Walker, and Amari Cooper. Reports look rough. Should I start Deontay by default? So quick background on all these guys. We just talked about Aaron Jones, Dalton Schultz, hamstring injury. He didn't practice at all last week. I was expecting him out. It's told people, hey, go pick up Brevin Jordan. I still will tell people to pick up Brevin Jordan. He practiced in a limited capacity yesterday, but he did not practice today. So whether that's a setback or whether it's like, hey, I'm not ready to go, that's not a good sign, especially with a hamstring injury. So I'm off Schultz. I really don't think he's going to play. And if he does, very high re-injury risk. So Schultz is immediately out for me. Kenneth Walker, again, one of those situations. I know they both didn't practice yesterday. I didn't catch if they practiced today. I don't believe he did. I don't know if we can look that up really quickly. But with Charbonnet, they were both did not practice actually yesterday. It's one of those situations I probably avoid Walker because even if he plays, he's going to be splitting. And Amari Cooper, he didn't practice and he's got a concussion. Typically Thursday, you want them to have at least a limited practice in concussion protocol to be able to kind of have any type of confidence there. So unfortunately, I think the question is really between Aaron Jones and Deontay Johnson. For me, at least. What are your thoughts, Derek? And, which of those guys would you start? I'm assuming we're just talking one start spot up there.
Yeah. Who are we looking to look up? My bad.
No, it was a Kenneth Walker situation.
Okay. But I was in the process of doing that. But I would say I would lean towards Jones, mainly because Deontay Johnson is very untrustable. I guess.
Nice word, Doc.
Yeah. You can't. Yeah. Deontay Johnson is.
Yeah.
No. I think I have to go Aaron Jones by default. Like I said, I think Aaron Jones gets a lot higher workload at this point.
Yeah, Bryce. So it looks like Derek's got a little more faith in Aaron Jones. I would, obviously with Deontay going tonight, you kind of got to make your decision now. I would lean where Derek is because, I don't know how many people saw it. So for a little background, Derek and I both went to school in Pittsburgh. That's actually where we met. Derek is a Lurs fan. My wife is a Lurs fan. As you can see, the terrible towel over there, whichever way it is. So married into this situation. Deontay Johnson, if you didn't catch it, he celebrated a touchdown last week when they were down by 20. I don't think Mike Tomlin probably took too kindly to that. And you have Mitch Trubisky in at quarterback. You don't know what that's going to look like. I understand he scored last week, but that was in a blowout. I don't expect a blowout either way tonight. It's going to be an ugly game. I actually almost like Allen Robinson most best out of all the Steelers wide receivers tonight, just because that connection with Mitch and a lot of ugly short stuff. So yeah, it's a little bit of judgment call, but it looks like we both probably going to sit Deontay and maybe go Aaron Jones there.
Going back to Walker, he didn't practice yesterday. They haven't said or I don't see anything about today. So Kenneth Walker's probably lower on the list for that fact as well.
And he mentions he's got Thielen too, which Thielen was like such a nice story early on. And then I don't know, man. I took a couple Thielen bets last week, and just watching Bryce Young for an entire game, unless you're a Panthers fan, there's few forms of torture. I've petitioned the Army to potentially look into that as a torture method to watch Bryce Young kind of play a full football game, man. That's tough. All right, we're going to move along here. We're going to get through the last couple guys, and of course, we're going to give you our underdog parlay to go ahead and wrap that up. So a couple guys, we're going to do a little rapid fire here. Puka Nacua, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams, really a stud. Obviously, if you were able to pick him up early on, kudos to you. Cheers to you again, because that is a awesome pickup, man. That's let me not cheers without drinking there. Nacua looking okay. You know, he went down. He had actually really hell of a catch if you saw the play. If you didn't, I have my tweet linked in there where, you know, obviously injury analysis as we're watching some of these games, you can kind of watch and see how he comes down on his shoulder here. And he looked pretty bad. He kind of came off the field and was really limping. But as I kind of thought it might be, hopefully just an AC sprain, that looks like what it is. Essentially what an AC sprain is, it's to that anterior basically the full joint that connects your clavicle and your shoulder bone. So right there, your AC joint, as Derek is pointing out, it's more of a minor injury. Most guys play through this with the pain. What are you thinking as far as Puka? Are you trusting him, or is it a situation where you're off?
I'm trusting Puka. When it comes to AC sprains, kind of like we saw with Keenan Allen earlier in the season, there's a meme or picture or whatever of Keenan Allen with this big jacked up hump on one of his shoulders that was an AC sprain from years ago. Yeah. With receivers, AC sprains aren't as big of a deal as other positions, mainly off either offensive linemen that have to do a lot of pushing in that anterior position, or quarterbacks that have to do a lot of rotational kind of things up in the shoulder. So with receivers, AC sprains are usually fairly minimal.
Yep. No, I think we're on the same page there. So if you got Puka, go ahead and start him. I understand he's going up against the Ravens. Ravens defense is good, but I think Puka Nacua is good enough that he's going to still get you some production there. So don't shy away from your studs there. All right. So we're going to have one more discussion to go ahead and wrap up before we get into this underdog play. And it's between Trevor Lawrence and Kenny Pickett, both guys who have exactly the same injury, but clearly different severities, right? So high ankle sprain refers to those ligaments between your tibia and your fibula. Above that real kind of traditional ankle joint we think of, it ties those joints together, or those bones together, that syndesmosis. So typical ankle sprain, low ankle sprain is typically what we think about when we're on the basketball court and we sprain our ankle and the foot rolls out. Those are common. High ankle sprains are not as common. They require more force, therefore they create more damage, a little bit harder to come back from. But we've got two guys here where Kenny Pickett had tightrope surgery, which basically kind of externally fixates. It kind of makes those bones fixate together through this type of rope that they use. And that's kind of more of a 4 to 6 week range. And you have Trevor Lawrence here, who is 3 days later already back at practice in a limited fashion. So go ahead, Derek, tell us, what kind of situations here? Who are you thinking is going to come back sooner? What are your outlooks for both these guys?
Well, I mean, there are videos of Trevor Lawrence today out practicing, out throwing, out kind of jogging around the field down in Jacksonville. So I would expect Trevor Lawrence to actually be back ahead of Kenny Pickett. Now, as far as the diagnosis goes, yes, they have the same diagnosis. Severity-wise, obviously, it is two different playing fields at this point. Trevor Lawrence probably has a very mild high ankle sprain versus Kenny Pickett. Probably had a more severe one, required surgery, required that tightrope surgery, which is basically like putting a cable between the two bones of your lower leg. So with that being said, Trevor Lawrence is already up moving. He's up walking around, doing everything without a boot, without any assistance. He's looking like he's in pretty good shape. With that being said, with the diagnosis injury that he was given, I don't know if I would necessarily look to start him this week, just because that high ankle sprain is usually at least a 2, 3, maybe even 4, 5, 6 weeks to recover. With Kenny Pickett, that tightrope surgery allows him most likely to return quicker than a normal, more severe high ankle sprain. So I would expect him to be back within like that 3 to 4 week mark, probably at the very tail end, if at all, in the fantasy season, where T-Law may be back next week, probably more likely 2 weeks from now.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm right on board there. Yeah, like as Derek was saying, Trevor Lawrence, a situation where still high ankle sprain, they're not a little thing. Even in mild cases, 4 to 6 weeks until full recovery. But it looks like Trevor Lawrence is pushing to be back, potentially next week, if not the week before. We all saw this with Mahomes. You can play on it. I think it would be very short-sighted for the Jaguars to roll Trevor Lawrence out there this week. It's not the playoffs like Mahomes' situation. I think that's the key difference there. The Jaguars still have a 2-game lead on the AFC South. I think it's wise. Yeah, they do play the Browns, who are starting probably Joe Flacco, who we may talk about a little bit here. But I think it would just be unwise as far as a long-term play for Lawrence to go out there. So even if he does play, I would avoid him. I would definitely sit him for this week and then kind of watch how it plays out there. All right. Before we get into the fun stuff, I want to tell you about Underdog Fantasy. So Underdog Fantasy is the fantasy platform that we are going to use for our pick'ems. And to make the deal even more sweet, promo code SGPN will match your deposit up to $100. That initial deposit will be matched up to $100. It's very simple, folks. Just type in promo code SGPN, use that promo code, and submit $100, and boom, you will get a free $100. And we are going to use some of that free $100 to go ahead and get our daily Degen, our weekly Degen prescription of the week. And here it is, folks. So this plays out at 22.5 to 1. We're going to go ahead and start off. Professor Locks, Mr. Derek is going to start us off, and we're going to take you through a 4-game pick'em for this weekend. These are our favorite bets as far as on Underdog. Tail it with us. Let's cash together. Derek, I will let you lead off. Who do we have first?
So I love Stephon Diggs this week. He's been on a little bit of a cold streak over the last few weeks. But one, the Bills against the Chiefs, it's starting to become a semi-classic matchup at this point. They played the last 2 or 3 years. Last year, Diggs went for 10 catches, $148, and a touchdown. So I love Stephon Diggs in this matchup. He's basically their number one option. So I love Stephon Diggs over rushing and receiving yards.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great play to start us off. My pick is somebody who I did not think I would be talking about really ever again. That is Mr. Joe Flacco. I'm going to go Joe Flacco higher than 192.5 passing yards. This is a situation where I was heavily invested on the Rams and the Niners last week. As any Degen finds themselves in a situation where I actually made this bet 6 times. I'm not going to say I advise that, but when I looked at it at the end of the day, at certain points, I put parlay for the Rams and the 49ers 6 times. So I was pretty heavily invested in this game. Joe Flacco, let me tell you, folks, he looked pretty damn good. For someone who I thought I was going to be an easy, no sweat, Rams were going to catch this. I know the score, they dressed that up a little bit, but he was slinging that thing. He put up 254 last week. And he's going up against the Jags, who just let up over 300 yards to Jake Browning. So I don't understand why this number is so low. I think that this is a situation where Flacco is going to easily fly over this number. Give me Flacco higher than 192 passing yards. All right, Derek, who is next up for you?
So I love the Bears receiving options. I was going back and forth between Cole Kmet and DJ Moore to score a touchdown because they're going up against the Lions, whose defense have just fallen off the face of the earth. And with Justin Fields coming back, absolutely love the Bears to get at least one receiving touchdown in this game. I decided on Cole Kmet mainly because he's a super spicy play in Underdog. But Cole Kmet has also got 7 targets in 4 of the last 5 games. So he's getting volume. He's being seen out on the field. I think he scores this week.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I think, look at these games this week, and I think that Chicago-Detroit game is one of those games that is going to be a little bit more higher scoring. We got probably some tighter matchups this week, so you really obviously want to pick the games where there's going to be a little bit more scoring, right? Cole Kmet, the Bears really should have won that game against Detroit. They hung up 26. They probably should have had a little bit more. They kind of collapsed at the end there in classic Chicago fashion. So I love that play. And nice thing about Underdogs, folks, that is a spicy play. So you're going to 2.25 the money there. So make that parlay just as juicy. I know Jamie's telling me, hey, man, Flacco looked bad this week. Listen, I'm not saying that Flacco is a nice, best thing since sliced bread. I'm just saying that he has a connection with Elijah Moore coming from the Jets. We'll see if Cooper plays this week and Njoku. I think that they have some opportunities where Flacco, honestly, with how the Browns quarterbacks have looked this year, I think he's looked like one of the best. We'll see. And it's really the Jags. They don't have they have an okay defense, but you're telling me Jake Browning in his second ever start got 350 yards. There's no way I'm not expecting Flacco to not go over this 200 yards. So we will definitely see there. Last play for our parlay. Give me Jamar Chase higher than 67.5 receiving yards. I know I was just talking about Browning as well, but Chase was heavily involved when this game went as the Bengals put up over 30 points. I think that he's easily going to go over this number, 67.5. I mean, honestly, that could be one deep throw to Jamar Chase, but clearly, as I was playing him in fantasy last week, I think the dude had like 5 receptions in the first quarter. They were he was very involved in this offense. It's a smart game plan. There's no Joe Burrow. You want to try to run the ball with Mixon, and you got to get the ball to your playmakers. Jamar Chase is the definition of a playmaker. I think to hang him anything under 80 is laughable against a Colts defense name me a quarterback on the Colts, right? Like who's covering Jamar Chase? Like they don't have Stephon Gilmore. They don't have Darrelle Revis out there. Like there's nobody going to lock him down. So I love this play here. Let's see what Jamie's talking about. He's got the over on Lamb's receptions. Eagles, yes, I would co-sign that play as well. I think that Eagles-Cowboys game's got the highest total this week, and I don't think I think Vegas is onto something there. Both those offenses are high-powered. Both those teams really need to win. So we might see some opportunities where they're going for it on 4th down because they know field goals will not win that game. So I will co-sign that play as well. All right, if you parlay all 4 of those together, that's Diggs higher than 74.5 rush receiving yards, Flacco higher than 192 passing yards, Cole Kmet anytime touchdown, and Jamar Chase higher than 67.5 receiving yards. That's $10 to win 225, 22.5x your money. That's what we do here, folks. As always, we appreciate you joining us, letting us talk ball, breaking down these injuries. As any new show, we're still figuring these things out on the fly, so we appreciate you hanging in with us. Best way you can help us out here, subscribe to the show. We're going to be back every week until basically the season is over. So please join us. Bring your questions. Hit me up, whether it's on X, whether it's on YouTube, whatever it is, SGPN Fantasy Football, at SGPN Football Doc. We finally got Derek to make a Twitter and X there, at SGPN Professor. Follow us. Reach out to us. Let's talk ball. Let's enjoy this season, and let's win some championships, folks. We're out, and we hope you enjoy that absolute shit fest we're going to watch here on Thursday night. Derek, you got anything for the people before we sign off?
Steelers 10-3.
I love it. I love it. Go Lurs, baby. We'll see y'all next week. Take care. Enjoy. We are out.